Test, test. Chris? Chris? Test, test. All right. Una second. Una second. Pigi pala una simigata. Takwa agni ko igu kuning aktu.
We'll have a presentation. Agnico Ego is on the table. You may proceed whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I'm Nancy Duquette-Harvey, Environmental Superintendent for the Hope Bay Mine. We thank the Nunavut Planning Commission for this opportunity to present at this hearing. We also thank the Hamlet of Cambridge Bay for hosting this meeting and being a supporter of Agnico Eagle's Hope Bay project for many years. Thank you to the HTOs who have traveled across Nunavut for this meeting.
Reminder to slow down for that. Thank you.
Before we continue, we'd like to pay our respects to Ike Ivalik, who was our community liaison in Cambridge Bay and a good friend. We would like to pass along our condolences to his family and friends. He is certainly missed by all our colleagues at Agnico Eagle. Agnico Eagle was planning to have Jamie Cannell to present. However, changes were made for personal reasons, and he'll be presenting in Rankin Inlet and Thompson. This is an overview of our presentation. We will be delivering a short form of the presentation today focused on caribou mitigations at our sites, and we'll go into more details at future hearings. We respect the great effort that has gone into developing this plan. However, we think there's a lot more work to be done to achieve the necessary balance for a first-generation land use plan before it is ready. At this time, Agnico Eagle does not support the plan in its current form, but is looking forward to working with the Nunavut Planning Commission, Inuit organizations, government, other proponents to arrive at a plan that will reflect a balanced consensus approach. We recognize compromise will be necessary to arrive at a final plan, but we are very concerned about the impact of the current draft on Nunavut's economic and socioeconomic future. Our key concerns are: the approach in many areas is to restrict proponents from even submitting an application to the Nunavut Impact Review Board. Industrial activities are banned before their potential benefits and impacts can be considered. This approach is too restrictive and does not give proper weight to the Nunavut Impact Review Board's process, which is designed to assess potential for effects and proposed mitigations to prevent those effects. The approach does not give proper weight to the mitigations in place at mine sites across the territory, including at Hope Bay, Whale Tail, Meadowbank, and Meliadine. It also does not give due consideration to the monitoring data that we are required to collect and report to the Nunavut Impact Review Board and our advisory groups, which includes participations by many parties, including hunter and trapper organization members. We also want to note the footprint of areas affected by mining. The actual area affected, including reasonably foreseeable future mining, is very small. 99.97% of habitat would remain available even if the potential projects are approved by the Nunavut Impact Review Board. Agnico Eagle has developed robust mitigation plans in collaboration with Inuit and regulators, programs that keep caribou safe. We are looking forward to presenting more details on those for you today.
Good afternoon. I'm Greg Sherham. I'm a wildlife biologist who works with clients to help develop mitigations and protect wildlife at mine sites, and also help carry out wildlife monitoring at mine sites. I'm going to focus my remarks here on how potential effects on caribou from mining can be prevented and mitigation measures allow for caribou and mining to coexist. First, all of Agnico Eagle's exploration projects and mines have robust...
They want you to speak to the mic closer. Thank you.
Okay. First, all Agnico Eagle exploration projects and mines have robust mitigation and monitoring programs. The Kivalik and Kitikmeot Inuit Associations permit Agnico Eagle exploration using mobile protection measures for caribou. Mines have a terrestrial ecosystem mitigation and monitoring plan that is quite long, so I'll be referring to it here as the wildlife plan. This wildlife plan is based on IQ and Western science. It is reviewed by Inuit and technical experts and is a requirement by the Nunavut Impact Review Board project certificate. During mine operation, each project has a wildlife plan that is followed. The results of monitoring and any adaptive management is reported to the Nunavut Impact Review Board. Inuit groups and experts then review the results, and the plan is updated through a working group. The Nunavut Impact Review Board asks for public comments on that monitoring plan as part of its process. Management and monitoring of wildlife at mine sites is a collaborative process with Inuit organizations and government agencies, including hunters and trappers associations. We have several examples in the following slides. For example, the Meadowbank project has a terrestrial advisory group which has been operating since 2018. That group includes the Kivalik Inuit Association, the local hunters and trappers associations, the government of Nunavut, and Environment and Climate Change Canada. Agnico Eagle reports the results of its wildlife monitoring and often its fisheries monitoring to this group. The group meets regularly. The group also conducts site visits and together uses IQ and Western science to update the wildlife plan. The Meliadine project also has a terrestrial advisory group, which begins in 2022. It includes the Kivalik Inuit Association, the Hunters and Trappers Association, the Saisi Dene First Nation, the Northlands Denesuline First Nation, the Government of Nunavut, and Environment and Climate Change Canada. In addition to these terrestrial advisory groups that work with Inuit and government organizations, Agnico Eagle includes IQ and wildlife advisors in their projects to include perspectives from Inuit and communities. Agnico Eagle employs 2 IQ and wildlife advisors. These are Inuit members of the communities. They meet with elders in the communities, conduct site visits, and review the mitigation and the monitoring at mine sites. It should be noted that this is not a permit requirement. It's an extra step that Agnico feels is important for its projects. Closer to Cambridge Bay, at the Hope Bay project, Agnico Eagle has an Inuit Environmental Advisory Committee. This committee was formed in 2011. It is made up of elders and land users with experience in the project area, including members of the Hunters and Trappers Association. They meet regularly to discuss and update the wildlife plan. Members conduct site visits, they interview staff, and make recommendations on wildlife mitigation and monitoring. In the left-hand photo here, you can see the Inuit Environmental Advisory Committee visiting site. This is a ramp which the committee suggested installing. There are several of these ramps installed at Hope Bay, which allow caribou more easily to cross the road. And here, the elders are inspecting the ramp and looking for caribou footprints on the ramp. On the right, elders are interviewing the Hope Bay blasting manager to discuss mitigation for caribou. Agnico Eagle has a robust monitoring and mitigation program at each one of its sites. These programs are broadly based on the mobile protection measures. They incorporate IQ and Western science. And what this means is that we track when caribou are present, we monitor for these caribou, and we manage accordingly. In addition to in-person meetings and site visits, Agnico Eagle has developed a virtual meeting room during the pandemic. This is an online platform to foster an open, transparent, and respectful dialogue with all communities of interest. It's completely accessible in Inuktitut and English, has a wide variety of materials from videos to interactive maps, story maps, infographics, and text. It allows meaningful sharing as well as getting feedback from community members. Information is available on our efforts to introduce TK and IQ into Agnico Eagle operations. And there's a feedback form and questionnaires that are available to gather comments and questions. A lot of the mitigation for caribou are things that you don't normally hear about. They're built into Agnico Eagle's projects, such as designs that allow caribou to cross roads. On the left of this slide, you can see that roads are built as low as possible to the tundra and with a gentle slope to allow caribou to cross. In the middle photo, you can see a bridge built across a caribou trail to help caribou cross the road. On the right, you can see a tunnel built underneath the road to help caribou cross under the road, with many caribou footprints where they use this tunnel. Agnico Eagle also conducts several types of road monitoring. Trail cameras are used to monitor where caribou cross the road and study whether there are particular types of road or material which improve crossing. Agnico Eagle also conducts daily driving surveys, recording the number of caribou near the road. Agnico Eagle conducts monitoring for caribou at all of their mine sites. We see that caribou use the areas surrounding the roads and the mine sites. At each of Agnico Eagle's projects, they have a wildlife plan, which is required by their NERB project certificate and Inuit agreements, and developed in consultation with their advisory groups. The wildlife plan has a program where caribou are monitored near roads. When a certain number of caribou are observed near the road, then the road is closed. And in the photo, you can see there's a good number of caribou near this road. This is the Meliadine Road, and the road has been closed. Every year, Agnico Eagle closes its roads for many weeks at a time to allow caribou to more easily migrate unhindered. Caribou monitoring and mitigation also occurs at mine sites. For example, at the Meliadine project, on-site technicians conduct daily surveys when caribou are in the area. The circles on this map represent a 5-kilometer buffer around the mine site. The white shapes are groups of caribou that have been observed from daily surveys. So you can see that sometimes they're inside that 5-kilometer buffer and sometimes they're outside. Agnico Eagle conducts mine shutdowns so that caribou remain safe. This is an example from the Meliadine mine. When monitoring at the mine site indicates that groups of caribou are approaching the site, in this case, when more than 50 caribou are within 5 kilometers of the site, then the mine is shut down. In 2021, the mine was shut down for 10 days. This includes all vehicles, blasting, drilling, and helicopters. These shutdowns underline Agnico Eagle's commitment to avoiding effects on caribou. And it should be noted that the only mines in Canada that conduct these types of shutdowns for wildlife are in Nunavut. Agnico Eagle also monitors for effects of mining on caribou at each of its operations. The monitoring programs are reviewed by the Inuit Environmental Advisory Committee and the Terrestrial Advisory Group, depending on the mine site, which includes participation from local hunters and trappers associations. This includes ground-based monitoring, behavioral monitoring, tracking movement of caribou using data from the Government of Nunavut and Northwest Territories. And just to be clear, Agnico Eagle uses data from caribou collars, but does not collar caribou itself. As well, Agnico Eagle uses camera monitoring to look for effects on caribou. These monitoring programs typically show that the actual effects on caribou are lower than those predicted through the environmental assessment process. At both the Meliadine and the Meadowbank sites, environmental monitors conduct behavior surveys on caribou. This has been going on for 2 years. These surveys show that caribou react to all-terrain vehicles and trucks on the road, but typically return to base behaviors, so the behavior before the vehicle, relatively quickly, typically in less than 3 to 6 minutes. We thank the Kivalik Inuit Association and the Government of Nunavut, who have been collaborators on this monitoring program and for providing many helpful suggestions for fieldwork and analysis.
Nancy Duquette-Harvey, Environmental Superintendent for Agnico Eagle. Agnico Eagle would like to thank the Nunavut Planning Commission for this opportunity to provide comments on the 2021 draft Nunavut Land Use Plan. Agnico Eagle appreciates the hard work that the Commission and Nunavut right holders and stakeholders have put into this plan. However, we do not think that the plan is ready, and there are existing mechanisms such as the Nunavut Impact Review Board with the mandate to address environmental protection. We look forward to working more on the plan together with the Nunavut Planning Commission, Inuit organizations, hamlets, community groups, governments, other proponents, and industry groups to arrive at a final plan that can work for all of us and help secure a healthy environmental and economic future for Nunavut. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the staff?
Questions from the staff?
Not at the moment. Any questions from the other communities representative? Any question from the
Registered participants?
representative? Other participants? Atigo, go ahead.
Pamela Wong, Senior Research and Technical Advisor for the Kitikmeot Regional Wildlife Board.
I don't know if they can hear you. Can you come to the close to the microphone? Thank you.
Pamela Wong, Senior Research and Technical Advisor for the Kitikmeot Regional Wildlife Board. I don't know too much about the Meladine mine, so I just wanted to start off by saying that. I'm curious from like a business standpoint, what it costs the mine to close down for 10 days. And the reason I'm asking is I'm curious what the pressures are to keeping the window short that must be balanced with allowing, in this case, caribou to cross. Thank you.
Namik,
Thank you.
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nancy Duquette Harvey with Agnico Eagle. At this time, since our panel chair is not here, we will gladly answer your question in writing.
Namik, any other questions? I don't see any hands. Namik, thank you for presenting and answering the question. Namik. Takuato tabut atu namiluit Glencore tamani pata atu na ona simi
If Glencore is here, please take this table.
Namik, tema lemat. Whenever you're ready, you can start.
Daniel Vrend, Glencore, Canada. Before I start, I'd also like to just thank the Planning Commission, the participants in the panel, the translators, and the caterers here. It's no small task to arrange the people, to arrange the logistics, and to come here in person. And I very much appreciate the in-person activity over remote events that we've all gone through for the past few years. So thank you. Our view here is to listen, which we've done and I've done for the past few days, and also to be heard and to present our view on about who we are in the Hackett River project and the impacts of the draft Nunavut land use plan. So just an overview of who we are at Glencore. We are one of the world's largest natural resource companies. We've been transforming the global commodity industry for nearly half a century through our acquisition of industrial assets with individual histories going back further. Thank you. We have over 150 sites that we operate globally in over 35 countries with 30 different offices. Our business is separated between industrial assets and marketing, where I represent our industrial assets being our mines and metallurgical facilities. We operate a series of mines and smelters within Canada, including in Nunavut in northern Quebec. And our business, broadly speaking, covers exploration, extraction, processing, refining, and marketing of logistics of materials in the metals business. Glencore has mines and smelting operations in northern regions, including Canada and Norway. Hackett River has potential for development and exploration. Glencore has demonstrated itself to be a responsible mining company in Canada and has history through our predecessor companies for nearly 100 years. Glencore is committed to sustainability, focused on safety, environmental health, and community and human rights per industry best practices and international standards and guidelines. And the Hackett River project is one of many projects in our pipeline and portfolio, and we periodically review exploration targets and potential and refresh its views. Canada is one of the most established jurisdictions for mining in the world through economic and political stability. The mining sector in Canada is committed to responsible development and social practices through sustainable development and is internationally recognized. As is Nunavut, and Nunavut has great...
We keep getting reminded to slow down.
Okay.
If you can just try and slow down when you're reading, please, and thank you.
Nunavut has great mineral potential, but it's remote, it's deficient in infrastructure, and subject to Arctic climates, which make economic considerations for natural resource development challenging. Nunavut's requirements and process for assessment and review of infrastructure and natural resource development projects is currently well established and robust. Key facts about the Hackett River project. The project is located in the Kitikmeot region, about 350 kilometers southeast of Kugluktuk. Currently, there is no rail or road access. Development is required to export concentrates to the market. The current project status is in an advanced exploration and early study works on the deposits in the greater project. Studies since the 1970s and the project proposal was submitted in 2008. And for reference and size, there are no other undeveloped zinc or silver assets or projects in Nunavut of this size, and very few globally of similar size to Hackett River. The project phase is again in advanced exploration and preliminary economic assessment study phases. The Hackett River project has the potential to be a major driver of jobs and economic growth for the region. Construction of an access road and port can lead to other major developments in the area. There will be a need for skilled employees and service providers, leading to high demand for workers in the region, especially skilled trades, and opportunities for the next generation of young workers. Further than what was presented in the project proposal in 2008, as with many mining projects, there is potential for additional resource development as projects get built. The project proposal that was submitted in 2008 described the intent of a mine at the Hackett River area. The proposal provided an overview of the types of activities and infrastructure to allow the Nunavut Impact Review Board to determine whether a full Part 5 public review would be recommended for the project and to assist the development of draft environmental impact statements guidelines. What was presented in the project and what is required to develop a project of this size is beyond just a mine. It requires a mine, a road, and a port. All three elements are required for a project of this size. The approval process, so during the recommended review process, the conceptual project is further defined and primary project components assessed. I won't go through the details of the approvals process, but as understood at the time, it was clearly outlined through NERB and through the Water Board and the involvement with the KIA, which would be included. But I want to highlight and reiterate the process of a project such as this does change from initial project proposals. There is considerable work that goes on after the proposals, and it is important for the Planning Commission to understand that flexibility is required as a project advances, not only in terms of the footprint of the mine, with the linear infrastructure and the required exports of products through ports to tidewaters. And I just do want to emphasize that, the Hackett River project is not a mine. It's a mine, a road, and a port where all three components are required. Thank you. So included in the project proposal was key infrastructure, including access and transport, which involved airport and aerodrome facility with all-weather runways, port facilities, and all-weather roads. The importance of all-weather roads is critical to outline in the case of Hackett River, as it's a base metal project, and the products out of the mine are mineral concentrates, which are bulk and cannot be flown or removed easily out of sight and require a port and large storage facilities to house them. At the mine itself, it's a pretty substantial infrastructure involved as well to house the operations, including power generation facilities, potable water and treatment, effluent and sewage treatment, water management facilities, personal accommodations, communications infrastructure, warehouse facilities, concentrator with crushing plants, concentrate storage facilities, fuel storage facilities, maintenance shops, on-site all-weather roads, and mine dry and offices. So I challenge the commission, the Planning Commission, to think of this less of a mine, but an infrastructure project to support a mine. Further considerations. The Hackett River project has the potential to be a major contributor to metals under the critical minerals and the Canada Critical Minerals Strategy. The Hackett River project has the potential to be a major driver of jobs, services, and economic growth to the Kitikmeot region. Port infrastructure will be for storage, transportation of concentrates from the project, and will be a key piece of regional support. Additional opportunities. Opportunities for capacity building for workers of the Kitikmeot region and opportunities for the next generation. A multi-user port and road can lead to other future jobs and business opportunities, and it may increase the supply chain opportunities within the region. Investing in partnering with the communities where we operate, there are opportunities with long-term agreements, with social programs, with local stakeholders. And there's also opportunities to support increased scientific research and in the remote regions as there's increased focus on monitoring. And to highlight, the link to the Canadian Minerals and Metals Plan and the mineral strategy is that Hackett River would be a very large producer, if brought to production, of zinc, and a moderate producer of copper, which are fundamental in the greening and development of the world. Which brings us to one of our areas of concerns is that the draft Nunavut Land Use Plan does not fully recognize proposed roads and corridors, such as those associated with the Hackett River project. The project will be isolated if it's located within limited use areas that prohibit linear development and/or other associated activities. Without roads, mines would be unable to transport infrastructure, construction material, fuel, personnel, and concentrate. And again, I emphasize this point for base metal mines over many precious metals or gemstone mines, where the product out of the mine is a bulk material and can only be shipped out by sea. For projects which have not completed construction, flexibility is required in infrastructure footprints and road routing. During the proposal stage, conceptual drawings depict possible mine infrastructure, and road routes are prepared to allow government bodies and regulators to determine guidelines for the preparation of an impact assessment. These depictions undergo substantial revisions and evaluations over the established regulatory process. This flexibility is often captured during potential development areas or similar in draft and final EIS applications. So again, it's important to maintain that flexibility in the Planning Commission's view that there will be many iterations of design, engagement, and involvement with communities, with stakeholders on what projects look like, and it's important that there's enough flexibility built in. So a few of our recommendations are around ensure that proposed road corridors are included in the protections offered to the existing projects, to ensure project design flexibility is included in protections offered to the existing projects and existing property rights, including flexibility for road corridors and exploration. The below points were previously highlighted. I'm going to pass over the next two slides because I don't believe they appropriately capture our concerns after some revisions. So to the next area of concern, the Hackett River project will essentially be sterilized if the current draft Nunavut land use plan is currently drafted. We recognize that the Hackett River project is amongst others listed in Appendix A. However, the project needs critical infrastructure and activities required to develop and operate such a mine are missing. Without the ability to undertake necessary management and mitigation measures for the periods of time or the ability to transport materials to and from a projects such as Hackett River can never be feasible. And projects such as Hackett River represent considerable economic activity. As an organization, we've spent over $100 million on the project through exploration. If the project advances, it could represent billions of dollars of future investment in infrastructure, in services, in supplies, in contracts. It could represent hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in employment training and capacity development. And it could represent hundreds of millions of dollars that would be generated for governments in taxes and royalties. There would be a significant opportunity for further research and development and understanding of the environment in a remote northern area. So further recommendations, consider science and methodology in determining the mixed, conditional, and limited use areas in the draft Nunavut land use plan associated with prohibitions and restrictions. Consider the socioeconomic impacts of limitations to development or activities in limited use areas, and that the NPC be required to undertake a strategic or regional assessment of the draft Nunavut land use plan to assess its environmental and social impacts on the territory and existing property right holders. So to conclude, the Hackett River project contains critical minerals which are essential to Canada's economy and economic security and required for advancing the global economy to a more sustainable future. Glencore is committed to responsibly sourcing commodities and critical minerals that advance everyday life and has demonstrated a long track record of operating in northern Canada. Mining is a capitally intensive industry which requires long timelines and regulatory visibility over years and decades of planning and project progression. Introducing the proposed land use plan may annul the Hackett River project as is, may annul the Hackett River project and stifle billions of dollars of potential future investment in Nunavut. The proposed land use plan should reconsider the science and methodology in determining the land use categories proposed. The proposed land use should consider the environment and social economic impacts of its implementation. Revisions to the draft Nunavut land use plan that protect and promote environmental and social integrity will allow responsible development of critical minerals and resources in Nunavut. Thank you. Happy to take some questions.
Thank you.
Now I know why you think the translator's beginning of their presentation. I don't know how many times they tried to ask you to slow down. Anyways, thank you. Jonathan, is there any question? Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Jonathan Savoy with Nunavut Planning Commission. Thank you very much for the detailed presentation on Glencore's priorities for the land use plan. You noted that Appendix A does include the footprint of the current existing rights for the Hackett River project, or a portion of them that falls within some caribou post-calving habitats. But that you correctly noted that the draft plan does not provide provisions for the associated all-weather linear infrastructure that would be required by the project. You also noted that it would be appropriate to have design flexibility in the location of the linear infrastructure. Do you have any thoughts on how this could be achieved in the draft plan as it's currently structured? For example, could Appendix A be retained with the footprint of the existing rights and wording added to the exemptions to authorize something like associated linear infrastructure? Would that address the concerns of Glencore regarding the certainty of being able to develop and retaining the flexibility to do it in the most appropriate way? Thank you.
Daniel Vrend, Glencore. I will try to get some of this right. I'm going to answer that more formally through writing because with some further support from the team. I think what I would like to make sure is reflected is, what's outlined and what was previously proposed and evaluated was access through BIPAR, but that's not to say that is the only option or available route to export product to market. And where the Hackett River sits right now to the north and west is restricted through limited use areas. And if those were potential corridors to evaluate, that option isn't a possibility at this time. So I'll answer more formally through writing, but that is the concern with the linear infrastructure.
Okay, Jonathan, Namato. Tamangat,
Community representatives, questions?
Economic, Shota, Jimulgatilik, Chokra, Angutakarin, Ngakma. You don't mind going back to the slide with the world map slide, please? And thank you for your presentation. like I said earlier, I'm just a comment. We're asking a very small portion of the world to be protected. As you see, there's many mines in the world, and all we're asking is for our to be protected from mining and exploration.
More of a comment, not a question. Bobby also had a question. Back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bobby Greenlee, Iqaluit Jack Hunterson Choppers Organization Chair. You made the comment about reconsidering the science and methodology to the commissioners. And you mentioned a lot about creating jobs for Nunavut Mute, but you don't really mention too much about traditional knowledge. Like, there is a little bit mentioned, but not very much. Even going back to the 70s, you mentioned you've been doing studies there. So, we fight this all the time for many years now to have companies and scientists come up here. They tend to throw the knowledge of the people from up here way at the back or low on the totem pole. But, that's something you have to take into consideration. I know you mentioned reconsidering the science methodology to the board, so I just not sure about that. Like, there's very little bit of knowledge, information about traditional knowledge, and I think that's something that you guys should look at more about that as well. More of a comment, I guess, but and a suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, any other questions?
Any more questions from the communities?
Registered participant, any questions?
It appears non-registered participants. Appears none. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for answering the questions. Next on the agenda, World Wildlife Fund.
Koyanami Itzivota, Aaron Keenan, and this is my colleague Brandon LaForest with World Wildlife Fund Canada. We're also happy to answer to World Wildlife Federation, as long as no one is calling us World Wrestling Federation. But all joking aside, I know we're reaching the end, hopefully, of our proceedings this week. We just have a short presentation, and we're very grateful for the opportunity to address the room and speak as part of these proceedings. And our presentation is going to be quite repetitive of things that we've said throughout our participation in this process. I also want to mention we have a small team at World Wildlife Fund Canada working on this file, and our colleague Paul Okalik has been following along with the broadcast, and he will be present at the Rankin Inlet hearings next week. So World Wildlife Fund Canada has a permanent office in Iqaluit, And we work on a variety of environmental issues in partnership with local, territorial, and federal organizations across the North. Our work includes supporting the development of local inshore fisheries, advocating for cleaner fuel and practices in the Arctic shipping industry, intervening where appropriate in regulatory processes, and supporting Inuit-led protected and conserved area initiatives. As an organization, we have been actively engaged in the development of the Nunavut Land Use Plan for many years, providing expert reports, data sets, geographic information layers, and specific recommendations and comments, as well as attending numerous technical and procedural meetings and supporting the participation of other groups at their request. We work directly with local communities and are always open to receiving requests from community groups and hunters and trappers associations to support their participation in this or any environmental process in Nunavut. And so on that note, I'd like to encourage anyone in the room who has something they think we might be, they're interested in partnering with us to speak to us after our presentation. Yep. As we all know, an immense amount of work by all parties has been put in to get the Nunavut Land Use Plan to this stage. And we applaud the Nunavut Planning Commission on the release of the 2021 draft Nunavut Land Use Plan, along with the subsequent resumption of public hearings. However, the plan remains in draft form, which, as we've heard about this week, allows for mineral claims to be issued in areas that have clearly been identified for years as eventual limited use designations. The issuance of these claims serves no one and simultaneously threatens the integrity of biological and cultural features that the plan is designed to conserve, while also creating lengthy environmental impact assessment processes. Areas that are important to communities are being claimed by interests that they do not agree with and without their input. The Nunavut Land Use Plan is a living document that will be frequently updated, not only through regular reviews every 10 years, but also through amendment processes and ministerial exemptions. And we've discussed that process as well in the prior days this week. One of our key concerns for World Wildlife Fund is that without a land use plan in place, there's no way to manage cumulative impacts on wildlife habitat across Nunavut. And so what we really need to do is to move past this draft phase into the implementation of a land use plan for the territory.
Brandon LaForest, World Wildlife Fund Canada. We just have a few short technical comments. As indicated, these are mostly verbatim from our written submissions and no real surprises. The first is on caribou habitat. The reference is on the screen. I won't read it. Our recommendation is, although some refinement through intervener submissions and input received during the hearing process will be necessary, we recommend maintaining the limited use designation and associated year-round prohibitions on incompatible uses for caribou calving areas, caribou post-calving areas, caribou access corridors, and caribou freshwater crossings. At the time of the release of the 2016 draft Nunavut Land Use Plan, most herds of caribou across Nunavut were in a perilous state. 6 years later, the situation has only gotten worse. Total allowable harvests are in place for many herds, yet there is still no land use plan. Communities and harvesters continue to shoulder the burden of management restrictions, while mineral exploration continues even on the core calving areas of herds that are in either precipitous declines or at historic lows. The decisions made on caribou habitat land use will have long-standing impacts on the recovery and sustainability of caribou herds in Nunavut. And we applaud the Nunavut Planning Commission for the options and recommendations document from the 2021 draft. And our read of it makes it clear that there's widespread evidence and, importantly, community support that caribou calving areas, post-calving areas, key access corridors, and freshwater crossings should be designated as limited use areas with clear year-round prohibitions on incompatible uses. Mobile protections, from our perspective, are not an appropriate land use mechanism. And I'll save you from me reading out those 4 habitats again. You know, we're listening and we appreciate and learn a lot from the project-specific mitigation measures in place from industry, and even, you know, applaud years of work to develop these methods. We're simply putting forward that there are some areas that are too sensitive and the risk is too high to move forward with the development of a mine, for example, in the middle of a calving ground. There's insufficient evidence that mobile measures could be effectively used as a land use planning tool. And again, we're trying to be specific to differentiate between land use planning and, for example, project certificate impact assessment processes. In calving grounds and from land use planning, these measures are unproven, prohibitively costly, and short-sighted. Land use designations and the associated assessment of project applications by the Nunavut Planning Commission are the only mechanism by which to properly assess and prevent the negative aspects of cumulative impacts of multiple sources of disturbance across caribou habitat at the herd level. We heard again from the Nunavut Impact Review Board this morning, of course, not giving a direction on where to go, but just the need for some clear direction at a planning level on how to handle caribou calving grounds. we put forward, you can't manage caribou calving ground protection at the impact review board level, underscoring the importance of regional planning as we see here with the Nunavut Planning Commission. Always envisioned to be the first level of assessment for projects operating and applying to operate, rather, in Nunavut. The next technical issue, caribou sea ice crossings. The reference is on screen. We are supportive of the conditional use designation and associated restrictions in the 2021 draft Nunavut Land Use Plan for caribou sea ice crossings. We certainly respect and applaud the efforts of the Cambridge Bay HTO on their notice to mariners, and it's great to hear how successful that's been. Our position is it shouldn't be voluntary. There's an opportunity with the land use plan to make this law. There's widespread community support to seasonally prevent ice breaking during critical times for both Dolphin and Union and Peary caribou. We recognize the complex jurisdictional nature of these areas, and we really appreciate conversations with Transport Canada and Global Affairs. But we continue to advocate for these designations as conditional use with associated seasonal prohibitions on ice breaking. At a minimum, there must be clearly stated restrictions on domestic projects. Projects operating within Canada should not include any sort of ice breaking any sort of ice breaking activities during the time of these seasonal restrictions. We appreciate the desire for as minimal limitations on vessel traffic as possible, but put forward, it is common sense to say when people and caribou are migrating across sea ice, ice breaking is off the table. Proponents should be aware of these restrictions when developing projects in the region, and to reiterate, a legal, non-voluntary mechanism should be in place to prevent ice-breaking activities. I do know there are no walrus here. I'm going to ask everyone's patience as I read these slides for the record and for some interveners in the back. We're supportive of the limited use designation for terrestrial walrus haulouts. We're supportive of the specific requirements for non-research vessels. And we recommend the abandoned haulouts be listed as valued ecosystem components with notice to proponents to voluntarily avoid these areas. we put forward, this is a great example of how the Nunavut Land Use Plan will set clear guidelines for industry, including cruise industry, while safeguarding wildlife. There's widespread agreement that designating walrus haulouts as areas of limited use is appropriate given the high sensitivity of walrus at haulouts, the high cultural importance of walrus to Nunavummiut, the small geographic coverage of these areas, and the very limited existing protections for walrus at their haulouts. In informal discussions with industry, we've heard this is an easy one. There aren't that many haulouts, and avoiding them when safe to do so is quite possible and will have major benefit. We note that research suggests, and IQ also suggests, as noted in the options and recommendations document, that walrus may return to abandoned haulouts in the future, and thus to set a precedent that is easy to uphold. We recommend these sites be identified as valued ecosystem components with voluntary measures to avoid these areas. I'll turn it back to my colleague. Thank you.
Erin Keenan, World Wildlife Fund Canada. One final topic that we wanted to cover is something that has come up through consultation meetings that we have had in communities all across Nunavut in all 3 regions. And it's a topic that's also been raised by the community representatives that have spoken this week. So in consultations with communities, we have noted many concerns around the protection of important watersheds and fishing areas to ensure clean water and healthy fish. We have heard directly of the importance of ensuring no disturbance or discharge is allowed upstream of these areas to ensure their pristine nature. In either this or future iterations of the plan, we recommend the consideration of these areas as identified by communities as off limits to exploration and mining development to ensure the health of lakes, rivers, and fish important to each community. This will allow for the exploration of local fisheries as alternative economic development opportunities, as well as continued exercising of the constitutionally protected right of Inuit to fish for their food. And just to conclude, we'll note that the Nunavut Land Use Plan is an incredible tool that will facilitate the territory-wide conservation of environmental features of importance to Nunavummiut, while also providing greater certainty for industrial development proponents on areas that are open for development. We urge all parties to adhere to the timeline and deadlines associated with these final stages of the Nunavut Land Use Plan process to see the plan to completion. And again, we would like to thank the communities for their openness and willingness to share their areas of importance and their knowledge in this process. And again, we really appreciate the opportunity to be interveners in this process and wish the Nunavut Planning Commission and all parties successful hearings moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, Namik, any question? Jonathan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is Jonathan Savoy with the Nunavut Planning Commission. Thanks to WWF Canada for the presentation today. We note that in your previous written submissions, you identified some concerns with the blanket approach taken to existing rights in the draft plan, but that you required some additional time to consider the approach and that additional submissions may be forthcoming. I was just wondering if you have any additional comments on that approach today, or if there's any intention to file additional written submissions on the matter. Thank you.
Okay, Namik, Digo.
Brandon LaForest, World Wildlife Fund Canada. Thank you, Jonathan. Yes, this is a issue that, as you know, we've followed for many years, submitting legal opinions and having discussions with particularly the federal government. And we asked a question at this hearing. To answer your question, we're looking forward to these hearings to hear more, especially from the federal government and also from industry on their needs and their views on existing rights. We do expect to file a final submission before the deadline, and it will be an issue we'll discuss in the future, but thanks for the question.
Jonathan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Jonathan Savoy from the Nunavut Planning Commission. Thanks for the response, Brandon. One last question. We've raised it a few times, the issue of the periodic review proposed schedule in the draft plan, of beginning that review within 7 years and completing it within 10 years of approval of the draft plan. Do you have any comments on the appropriateness of that schedule for periodic reviews? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Brandon LaForest, WWF World Wildlife Fund Canada. We defer to the expertise of the planners in the room and actually really appreciated the answer of the Nunavut Impact Review Board this morning to that question. You know more than anyone the workload ahead of you and the burden it will be to review. I can say we don't think it's too short or too long, but you are the experts on that. And to us, what's really important is the commitment to review and the clearly laid out process of that review, because it mitigates some of the risks of closing some areas forever. It's a good reminder that the Nunavut Land Use Plan creates land use designations that are reviewed as priorities shift. The priorities of everyone around this table may be different 7 to 10 years from now, and we respect that.
Okay, Namik, Tema? Appareil komen waar.
Any more questions?
Kana, Paul, Beth.
Thank you, Chair.
KRWB.
Mute Wildlife.
Going back to the walrus haul out. People that don't go hunting all year, there's people that go hunting all year round. They do see walrus in our area and in other close by communities. So I guess nobody can say that we don't see them. It's because the people or the interviewers might say they didn't see any walrus. But there is walrus seen, observed in our area, in the Kitakmid region somewhere. I can't tell you exactly where it is, but they have been reported by mouth, not by paper. Thank you very much. Just a comment. Thank you.
General comment. Any more questions from community delegates? It appears none. We'll turn it now to registered participants.
Thank you.
Jim McEachern, CAO for Municipality of Cambridge Bay. And actually, I was kind of hoping you guys would ask this question. On your first or second slide, you mentioned that part of your role is to assist Inuit communities preserving land. Our colleagues from Tloyawak have been basically begging for help. Are you able to assist them in their work?
I know you're nodding, but you want to state your name and your organization before you verbally reply. Thank you.
Brandon LaForest, WWF Canada. Quickly before that, just for Paul, apologies for misspeaking. I should have said there are no Nunavut land use plan designated haulouts identified in this region. It's a limitation, I think, of the technical comments. I didn't at all mean to imply there are no walrus, so apologies and thank you for the clarification. For the question from the floor, we've worked closely supporting the Spence Bay Hunters and Trappers Association for many years, and yeah, I think that answers the question. And if there's further discussions at that, at their request, excuse me, and they can speak to themselves if there's further questions on that. But natural synergy. Thanks.
Before I go down there, I think David want to ask. Actually, go, David.
Chair. David Tutalik, Hamlet Councillor.
I would like to see a map of Busia Peninsula, but we got one here, which George Friday. I like to use it, or if not, I don't know if you got a map in there that would show. But the map here, I would like to use it because before we said the movement of caribou for their lay their calf and movement of the caribou. So I would like to use this, but I don't know where we can put it. But anyways, I'll try to make it short. Okay, Butia. That's Butia here. And we live Talukruak here. That's called Talukruak. First, they call it Spence Bay, but the old name is Talukruak. That's that's for our community settled. Before they're settled, they were all over the place. You can hang it up? No. Right. Okay, they were all over the place, this area. Now, Talukruak, here, before Talukruak, late 1930, early 1940, Joe Haven was a place where the trading post, also up here in Fort Ross, trading post called HBC, Hudson's Bay Company. There was nothing here. They want to settle HBC, Hudson's Bay Company. They want to build one up here, somewhere around this area. So they pick some place areas around here, but my grandfather, which I never used to see him, his name is Uhudlik, that's me, Uhudlik. Around that late or early 1940s, he picked that spot and he said, I think I could find a good spot where to settle Hudson's Bay Company. And that's where we all settled now. Before, they were all over the place. Now, Talukruak is a caribou blind. It's made long ago. Caribou blind, we still could see it. That's how they kill caribou. They guided the caribou area. That's where the good caribou. Now today, there's caribou movement, still movement there. They move up here and they settle their calves. And then they go back. They don't go really by the, because there's a town now. They don't use that. They come really close by different areas. Maybe some of them go by Mighty Island, King William Island, down to the mainland. But mostly they go by here. We know the movement of the caribou because they got their trail. We could see their trail today. Also the HTO, they put some cameras here and they're finding out, looking at them, which way they travel. That's why we want to protect Busia Peninsula. That time there was prospectors coming, boulder gas coming in. They know this area might be rich. Up here in the middle, we call it Hadnegel. They find some mineral there, and then our elders don't want to get it, those guys to settle and use it, open a mine. They want to keep it like that, the way it is. We are following them. And we want to pass it on to our younger generations. That's how, I think that's what George wanted to talk about it. He brought the map here, which is my cousin George's Schick. So this area here, we call it Handegut. They know they found some stuff, minerals there, and our elders say, no, keep it the way it is. And we younger generations, we want to pass it on to our younger generation too. The Y Caribou area, that's a big place, the Caribou area around here. Now, not only Caribou area, there's minerals all over the place. My brother George, 5 miles, 10 miles away from the town, he found gold about 15 years ago. And then later on, the Exploration People Company, they come to our town, they put tents, and they brought lots of minerals to show us what they found in Nunavut area, all over. They found one. And they said, if you found something that you don't really know what it is, bring it. We'll explain it to you. Now, 5 miles, I got a camp from Talukruak. Right on my cabin or near it, I found one, something that I don't know. I took a piece off, little bit, and bring it to them. And then they look at it. Okay. The person that knows it, this is called nickel. It was on ground, kind of big, but I took a small pieces off. He said, I think you're living in your cabin rich. Under you, there might be a big nickel, good for mining it. That's what he said, around that area in Talukruak. Also, there's lots of fishing around here, good area. That's what I want to explain. I think that's what George want to bring it to, so I'm explaining it to the public, to you guys, about it. I want to make it short. There's more all right. So I just want to explain it, this area. That's why Jeannie, that's why he wants to talk about this area here. Someday he should explain it why KIA never respond or answered. So we still going to look at it and work on it. That's what I want to say. Kuyanamik. Thank you.
Kuyanamik. More of a comment and explanation. Kuyanamik. Gentleman down there wanted to ask a question. Peter?
Thank you.
Thank you,
very much
Chair.
for allowing me to ask a question, and thank you for the presentation. My question is very simple. It's a yes and no answer. Does WWF have any legislative authority within Nunavut other than advocacy and funding programs?
Okay, go ahead.
Brandon LaForest, World Wildlife Fund Canada. No, of course we don't.
Thank you.
Kuyanamik. Tema, Tilo.
Thank you for the response, the answer. My second question is, through your advocacy in developing and funding organizations, communities,
have you ever contacted the landowners on the potential impacts of how these things are going? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Tigo.
Brendan LaForest, WWF Canada. Totally appreciate where the question is coming from. We think that's a discussion primarily between the HTAs or community groups to have directly with the landowners. We would be completely open to any sort of discussion like that. But referring back to your first question, we're not a regulator or a rights holder, and our role is to support groups at their request. In particular, this example, I would defer the question to the community group, in this case, the Spence Bay Hunters and Trappers Association, to speak if that would alleviate concerns. But yeah, I mean, to answer the question, we respect the regulatory system. That's why we're here, respectfully participating by following all regulations. But we are not in any sort of position to overstep or try to disrespect any Inuit organization. Thank you.
Peter, Tema.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Peter Taptuna, Inuit Association. Thank you for the response. I look forward to receiving more responses to my question. And I believe that he had deferred the question to Tilldrock, HTO, Hunters and Trappers Organization.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Jimmy had his hands up. I think he wanted to. Jimmy.
Jimmy Kiwata. Jimmy Lugatlik, Tilldrock. I'm going to hear I started my job. I got hired to be a manager May 28, 2015. The fall of 2015, the fall of 2016. The fall of 2015, the board wanted me to send request KIA for the help to start protecting Alberto. So I sent a map outlining Alberto and all the species that go there to migrate or go there to give offspring. Because the members since 1972 wanted Alberto to be protected. And I also sent the same map to NPC. From there, we never got any response. The chairperson before Joe was at a meeting in Iqaluit for a different meeting, but had a chance to talk with WWF, and that was the only time our request was recognized, and before that, our hands were handcuffed all the time, you guys. Not even we'll get back to you. Stuff like that. It's, yeah, this, we explained it over and over with 1972 since I've been here. But you guys seem to be somehow keep going back to you're not. I'm sorry, but yeah, we asked for help from KIA, but then no response, so we had to go. Seemed like we have to go over them, which we don't like to do. But I'm just getting frustrated here. So thank you very much,
Jimmy. We can talk about. You guys can talk about this. Can we get back to focusing on our why we're here and what the presenters were presenting? Any questions regarding the WWF presentation? Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you, Peter Taptuna, Community Association. The question was deferred to the community rep, so I'm going to respond to that. There's accusation made that, sorry, I'm not going to get there, but go to that level. But we did meet last year in July with Spence Bay Hunters and Trappers organization and at the staff level. And we exchanged information on mandates, authorities, and so forth on how KI could better help with a proposal that Spence Bay H2 had forwarded. Of course, there's processes. We requested the business plan and other documents to help the board make a determination. And when you don't get all the documents that you need, the board can't make a determination on which direction to give the staffers or technical people to move forward. So I appreciate your wisdom there, Mr. Chairman, in resolving this internally rather than through this forum. Thank you. Taima.
Vietnamese? Yep. You guys can talk more off the record here, but we need to get back to the draft land use plan that we're here for, and I appreciate there's another person wants to ask a question. State your name and your organization. Thank you.
Luigi Toretti, advisor to the Kitakmeot Inuit Association. Question to the World Wildlife Fund. How often has the World Wildlife Fund participated in regulatory processes, specifically the NERB, Nunavut Impact Review Board, and the NWB, Nunavut Water Board, specifically in the Kitakmeot region?
Atigo?
Brandon LaForest, World Wildlife Fund Canada. As noted, I think on this slide, nope. In the first paragraph, sorry. We intervene where appropriate or where asked. In the Kitikmeot region, not very much. Our office is in Iqaluit. And it's not always our role to be front and center. In fact, we support a lot of community initiatives from afar. We recognize very well, as is happening right now, that we can be a distraction. And that's fair. That is not our intention in any way. We have funding opportunities for research. We have funded the travel or the independent technical support for communities in processes in this region. We've worked with the government of Nunavut to fund research in this region. And this list is just meant to answer the question, not to justify our appearance or indicate that we deserve to be here. We're here because we followed every regulation to be a registered intervener. We've been an intervener for about a decade in this process. Tickets were booked for the 2017 Kitikmeot hearing that was called off. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. I expect a follow-up, but it's not our role to be ever present giving testimony. And I think a review of what we just presented is that we gave one of the most innocuous, consistent presentations, consistent with submissions we've done in this process for a decade. Thank you.
Numi, do you have more questions regarding the presentation that they presented? Numi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Luigi Toretti, consultant to the Kitikmeot Inuit Association. Still too short. Sorry. Thank you for that response. The World Wildlife Fund is here at this hearing presenting and advocating for area protection. Obviously, the board, the Kitikmeot Inuit Association board, has a resolution not supporting area protection, actually supporting mobile protection measures. So your organization is here speaking about something that is on the Nunavut land use plan that is hindering Inuit choices on that plan. And it is at the first step of the regulatory process, but yet your organization has not participated in the regulatory processes, even though it is open to Nunavummiut and Canada. Your organization has not participated in the Kitikmeot. So I was just looking for a clarification, and if I understood correctly in terms of yes, no, the answer is no, you have not participated in the Kitikmeot, and you have not advocated for area protection on the caribou file on any regulatory processes in Nunavut. Is that correct?
Yeah, okay, Numi. Did you want to? Okay, you don't need to, but go ahead.
Brandon LaForest, World Wildlife Fund Canada. Just super quickly, I'll note this is the regulatory process, and I'll note this is the first public hearing in the Kitikmeot region that I'm aware of. Your point is well taken. We're not at every NERB hearing. We're a small organization at the end of the day, despite interpretation. So I think actively participating in this process for 10 years and then showing up at the first opportunity in person in this region, yeah, I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Yeah, good to me. Regarding the presentation, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Mike Setterington with Environmental Dynamics here on behalf of Kitikmeot Inuit Association. And in regards to the presentation, I'd just like to commend the World Wildlife Fund, certainly an advocate for protected areas worldwide, has done some fabulous work throughout the world. My first exposure to World Wildlife Fund was saving the tropical rainforest, so thank you very much. It was good, but I'd like to bring it back down to the Nunavut context, and here we are talking about barren ground caribou and the land use plan being a land use plan and trying not to turn it into a caribou protection plan. So given that you're an advocate for protected areas, you are using some language here that I'd just like to address when it comes to caribou and the state of caribou. Using both science, which I will focus on, I'll focus on the science side with respect to the community members and traditional knowledge. I'll try and incorporate some of what I know about that after having worked in this region for a few years on some development projects. But you mentioned that the caribou here are in a perilous state, and it's true that we have seen caribou declines, substantial declines, large declines in some of the herds, the mainland herds. However, these trends fall within traditional knowledge as well as science knowledge, that we see these trends. In fact, the last surveys on 2 of the mainland herds, being the Blue Nose East and the Bathurst herds, we're actually seeing those numbers start to stabilize. And that's what the Government of Northwest Territories reports. The Dauphin and Union caribou herd will likely continue to decline, and that's traditional knowledge. They will probably continue to decline to the point that we won't see them migrate. These are expected trends that have been observed before. So when you said the caribou were in a perilous state, and 6 years later the situation has gotten only worse, I think that's very alarmist language to use with this group in the Kitikmeot region. We've had these herds increase and decline in the complete absence of any development on their calving grounds. We've seen the herds increase, and we've seen the herds decrease. We have herds across the north of North America that have declined and increased in the complete absence of human development disturbance. In fact, one of the herds that has continued...
Excuse me, are you asking a question or are you going to the question?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm trying to put this in context, to put their presentation in context and some of the language that they used.
Can you get to the question, please? Thank you.
So the question is, what is the widespread evidence that caribou areas need to be designated as limited use when this has clearly not been presented in the science since at least 1984? The widespread evidence is not there. We do have opinions about protection, but where is the widespread evidence? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Brendan LaForest, World Wildlife Fund Canada. Thanks for the question, Mike. I'll just, I'll defer to the options and recommendations document, and I'll end hopefully this discussion by saying we submit our proposal. We appreciate there are differing opinions on it. We respectfully are participating in a process being overseen by the commissioners and the board. You yourself and of course the rights holders organization and the landowners submit information as well. I can't speak more. I don't think anything needs to be said. We appreciate being here. We respect the authority of the board. We respectfully submit information, and we react to the outcome. Thank you.
Registered participant, any more questions?
Thank you, panel, for your presentation and answering the questions. We are going to take a short break, and we still have 2 presenters, so the break will be brief. They're not on the agenda, but they have requested to participate, so we have a few more.
All right. Pinamik, atin na wala meta. Matakwa nila sa mayatin na ito ni Chamber of Mine. Tahan nila niyo siyo Chamber of Mine kuning ako. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Scott Trussler, Northwest Territories and Nunavut Chamber of Mines. Thank you very much to the Commission and the members of the HTOs and communities for the opportunity to speak here today. This presentation will touch on some of the high points of our written submission to the Commission. I just want to note that as we're just a recent addition to the agenda, our translated version is in prep and will be made available to the Commission as soon as possible, and will certainly be ready for the Rankin Inlet hearings. So Northwest Territories Nunavut Chamber of Mines is made up of more than 200 member companies representing exploration, mine development and operation, and mining service and supply. The Chamber was established more than 50 years ago and has been advocating for responsible mineral development in the North ever since. So the mission and vision reflect a focus on responsible and sustainable mineral development and benefits to people and communities. We have permanent offices in Yellowknife and Iqaluit. Our general manager for Nunavut is Priya Sharma, and she's based in our Iqaluit office. The Chamber recognizes the importance of land use planning and the importance of the Nunavut Land Use Plan as part of the land and resource management system in Nunavut. And the Chamber has been participating in the process since its inception. So today there are 4 operating mines and a number of advanced and developing mineral projects in Nunavut. These are distributed across the 3 regions and represent multiple commodities. I just want to note that the operators of existing mining projects in Nunavut at present are all implementing the Towards Sustainable Mining system, which has been developed by the Mining Association of Canada. And I just mention that because there have been some discussions about mining methods and the operation of mining. And I just want to highlight that this is a system that's been developed to help to demonstrate and to evaluate the degree to which mining companies are delivering on their environmental and social commitments. It's externally audited, and the information is readily available to the public. I also want to note that it's been adopted by a number of jurisdictions globally, including Australia, Norway, Finland, Brazil, and Argentina, and others, which is a testament to the degree to which the world believes that this is a robust method of assuring that mining companies are operating in a responsible manner. In terms of mineral production in Nunavut, sorry, it's a bit hard to see, but this chart is a histogram which shows the mineral production in the 3 territories. Yukon is yellow, Northwest Territories is blue, and Nunavut in red. And the line that you see angling up over the last decade is an approximation of the increase in the value of mineral production in Nunavut over that period of time up until the middle of 2021. so currently sitting at about 2.5 billion per annum. And this positive momentum reflects the attractive geology of Nunavut and the view from the mineral sector that Nunavut is an attractive jurisdiction to develop projects in. In terms of Nunavut's economy, the mining sector in 2021 represented 37%, making it the largest private sector contributor to the Nunavut economy. In addition, there are indirect and induced effects that would add to some of the other areas of the pie chart, including things like construction, real estate, retail, and wholesale that relate to mining activity within Nunavut. One of the things that the Chamber does is to compile data that is reported by mining companies as part of their socioeconomic monitoring requirements. And so this is a few points from the decade 2009 to 2020, highlighting the socioeconomic benefits that relate to the mining sector. So 30,000 person years of employment, roughly 20% of those being northern, and in 2020, over 5,000 full-time equivalent jobs, which is a bit reduced due to COVID. Over that period, 10.8 billion in expenditures on service and supply, and roughly half of that being northern and indigenous. In addition, there are billions of dollars in taxes and royalties to public and Inuit governments, and hundreds of millions of dollars to communities in IBA payments, scholarships, donations, and community wellness projects. The Nunavut mining service and supply business has grown substantially. As you saw the increase in mining production, a number of companies have been established or grown to provide support to those mining companies that are advancing or operating projects. There are 66 listed here. It's not an exhaustive list, but certainly represents a broad array of services and supply categories to the industry. I think this is well understood, but just to make the point again, with the size of Nunavut and the geological variability, there is very substantial mineral potential across a broad array of commodities. Generally considered to be undermapped and underexplored, so the odds of additional discoveries are high. And that all contributes to Nunavut being recognized globally as having tremendous mineral potential. The challenges related to the growth of communities and the stress on housing, jobs, infrastructure have been discussed during these hearings, and I won't go into detail except to say that it's the view of the Chamber and our members that the mineral sector can help to provide support and positive movement on a number of those fronts, in particular providing employment opportunities and opportunities for business development. As I mentioned, the Chamber has been participating in the land use planning process in Nunavut for many years, and we provided feedback on the 2014 and 2016 draft plans. The message from our membership is that the 2021 land use plan is more prescriptive, restrictive, and complex than previous drafts. And it was put quite well earlier today. we are looking forward to working with the Commission and others to make adjustments to the plan so that we can address some of those issues. I think at the end of the day, one of the key things that we are hoping for Nunavut is that it remains an attractive jurisdiction for investment by responsible mining companies. So the mineral potential map on the left, and then on the right is a map showing conditional limited use areas. And the issue identified here, or trying to communicate here, is that in a general sense, and it's been referenced by many, but a high proportion of mineral exploration and development projects and operating projects are located all or partly within limited use areas that prohibit mineral development. So our recommendations, just to wrap up here, first of all, that we work to hit the right level for a first generation plan over such a vast area and such a diverse area. Secondly, reducing the level of prescriptiveness and limited use designations, and look at potentially utilizing other tools as identified in some of the options, in the options and recommendations document. Third is to make sure that the land use plan links effectively with other institutes of public governance in Nunavut and allows the flexibility and balance for each of those IPGs to undertake their respective decision-making mandates. And lastly, in perspective, this process, which has been a huge amount of effort and resources committed to collecting information from communities and from a wide variety of stakeholders, that we collectively work to find a way to make sure that data going forward is used in the best possible way to support well-informed decision-making. I'm going to end there, and thank you, and Kwana mi.
Thank you. Questions from community groups? Appears
Any question
to be
from
none from registered participants.
other participant down there? I don't see any hands.
Appears none. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you. Before the break, I mentioned that there were two presenters not on the agenda. We'll proceed with on the agenda, and we will start our concluding statements. We'll start with community
3 minutes
representatives. You may start your closing remarks, and the limit to you will be 30 minutes. Both level of governments and NTI will have 15 minutes. And you may at this time include your thoughts in your closing documents or closing remarks.
Beth, if we can just give them a mic for closing remarks. Start from this end. For closing remarks.
Yeah, hello? Yeah, ako yung numero matuloy na ito kasi makatawag masamani.
Appreciation for participating in this process.
Roger, it's kind of
Roger Johaven, HTO member, second vice president. I appreciate in participating in this important discussion for this region and to the question we are discussing. Thank you, Brandon Johaven.
And to everyone that did their presentation, thank you.
Thank you. David Johaven, HTO member. The discussion we had in the past few days, every presenter was very interesting to listen to, and the opinions are varied. So I think this organization hosting this proceeding is going into the right directions. We've heard from presenters who were not happy and some happy with what is being planned. Cambridge Bay, you have been very good hosts. Thank you for your hosting. Hamlet, I'm a replacement for a counselor. I like being in this process. I have learned a lot what is becoming of our region. Thank you. Salome Kachwali Johaven. I want to thank the organizers for very good hospitality. Our accommodations are very good and snacks being provided. Many have presented at this meeting, and especially to the Hamlet of Cambridge Bay and the chair of this organization have ran this meeting very well. Jeannie Johaven, Hamlet Council, thank you. Thank you for listening to our concerns. We also express what we want. This spring, Jonathan and Solomon Amono came into our community. We were very well prepared. We came here expecting what was to take place, so briefing prior to this was very important. Our discussions here as Hamlet councillors, my concerns were coming in from the community Hamlet, and for myself, I also voiced my opinion as a Talakwak representative. I was very concerned, and I voiced it on Bhutia Peninsula. Nothing really came out of it. And NTI, KIA, NERB, and the other organization who made the presentation, and nothing really came out of these groups with the concerns we have in our community on Bhutia Peninsula. I appreciate the support I receive, although at times discussions were very complex, technical, and although that was the case to me, I noticed that I could come back, and especially Talukya HTO, I think, was very supportive to this region's voicing their needs, especially that local RIO has to become more tentative to their communities in this region. I feel I was not being listened to, and we will continue this. If it's not accomplished in my lifetime, our grandchildren will accomplish it. Thank you. David Tutalik Talukyuak, Hamlet Councillor. I have been at boards for many years in my community, including some other organizations I belong to. First of all, Nunavut Planning Commission. Thank you for allowing us to express our opinions. We're going to miss you when we go back to our communities. And the people before me, Hamlet councillors, had high expectations for this region, our community, and I was part of that delegation and continuing what they wanted to see for my community, especially in land planning aspect. I know it's time consuming, it requires a lot of work. I praise my God. He knows what we need, and He will pave the way for what we cannot accomplish. Let's continue depending on Him to get our needs completed. This mighty God has created a way for us to prepare the land use. He created the world after all. It's not ours. We're just here for a short time. If we have high belief, we will be able to be home in better places for eternity. So I just wanted to express this on behalf of my community. And I have been fighting for my community for many years. The land is not ours. According to our ancestors, we are to use it wisely and enjoy what it has to give. Thank you.
I've never acted on my own. I have a board of directors that direct me. So, and this meeting gave me more direction. So I'd like to thank everybody again. And we'll keep in touch in the future.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to express, like everybody, I'm happy to be here. The task and what we had here was quite tedious, difficult. We have to go through these exercises so we could stand on our own 2 feet, although there are many obstacles in this region. Some of them appears to be unable to accomplish, but our cousins, the Greenlanders, are well governing themselves. Yukon indigenous population, they are doing very well. They are their own bosses and they are thriving. Here in this region, Kitikmeot, there are so many bureaucratic decisions that are preventing us from moving forward. Bureaucratic is stopping us from advancing and to get things accomplished to our needs. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Paul Ikwalak, Kitikmeot Health or Wildlife Board Chair. At our recent meeting, that, a lot of things come to us, new policies related to our organizations, our regions, and these policies at times are so restrictive. And many times, too, that when these new policies from regional boards are coming in, the information given to us arrive in such a short time, and many times we have no time to respond. Kitikmeot Wildlife Board, the policies or lack of it that we have to use. The policies, it's only at that time too that we hear when they become a reality without much consultation. The communities that you are representing, come, talk to us, come into the community when you have new policies that you want to impose onto the region. Come, see us face to face. We will have different opinions for you. And at one of the meetings, there are discussions, people complaining that they hear nothing. They are not informed. And lastly, I like to thank Community Hall or the community of Cambridge Bay and your group for hosting this gathering. And we will be busy this fall. Thank you for coming. Viola Nibiakyak, Hunters and Trappers Association, board member.
Thank you, Nunavut Planning Commission, for coming here for this final agenda for regional public hearing. Thank you. First of all, I really like to thank the NTI staff. We can't forget our original negotiators who fought for Nunavut in one lifetime, from their homeland to going to school, from negotiating from right after school. So that's a really big thing that we're all here today is from NTI negotiators. Thank you for that. Thank you, Government of Nunavut, Government of Canada. Thank you all for coming here. Thank you, KIA, Kitikmeot Inuit Association. I just wanted to say Kitikmeot Inuit Association is very concerning to me. The Kitikmeot Inuit Association regional office, and coming here to this hearing, you see a lot of representatives for organization are based. Their representative come within its very own regional office. It should be more collective from each community. Thank you.
Chair.
Committee. That's what I'm representing. The other delegates were not able to make it. I would like to express my appreciation to the information that was explained to me. Different organizations, we are different, although in the same region, but there's always a but. We have to find ways to work together as people of this region. I know when we have to meet, funding is always a problem, and thank you, Chair.
Chair, and thank you to the Nunavut Plan Commission, Randy Hinanak from the Kokoloktok Hunters and Trappers Organization. This has been my first time, and I learned a lot this past week. You guys are handling a lot of very important decisions for our territory, and I really appreciate all the hard work that you guys are doing. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and Darlene Hokangnak from Kokoloktok, Assistant Manager for HTO. Just want to say thank you to everybody for your presentations. That was awesome. We learned a lot. I want to say thank you to Cambridge Bay for hosting this meeting. It was very helpful. Like, it gave us a lot of answers, maybe some not. But thank you again, and hope to see you guys soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And the commissioners, thank you for hosting this conference, and Inuit organizations who are here. Government of Canada and other levels of government. My name is Lucy Taipanak, Hamlet of Kokoloktok. I appreciate for those of you who express your opinions, for our questions, answering the panels, and our fellow people from this region. And I thank you for hosting this proceedings. I know you are doing this for the future generation.
So I would just like to thank everyone who came to our meetings. Your presentations were very helpful, and to answer our questions that we had as best as you can. And I'd like to thank the Nunavut Planning Commission, the whole commission, the staff, our thank you so very much for a great week. We've learned a lot, and we will share this information with our community members when we get home. And I hope this has been helpful for the next planning session you have.
Harry Maxara, Cambridge Bay. Mr. Chair and your commissioners, we thank you so much for coming in and listening to, let me put it this way for the moment, listening to the table of experienced people who are the primary land users. And as primary land users, we are being encroached upon. And it's becoming a little more difficult for us to be able to go out and enjoy, as our friend mentioned, the creation that is out there that was given to us. And we as primary users, we're supposed to be the stewards of the land. We're here to look after the land. We want to teach our children and our grandchildren that they will take my place and protect the land and conserve the land, look after the land like we did for them. Because on that land, we have everything. We have food, we have clothing, we have shelter. It's absolutely beautiful to go out to the cabin and to listen to the songbirds and to listen to the migratory birds that have arrived for our pleasure and for our use. And we're not saying that we're against industry. We're not saying we're against development. But unless you incorporate traditional knowledge into what you are attempting to do, as you say, on our behalf, then listen to the ones that are the caretakers. We have patches of land that are actually archaeological lands that some of us don't even know about. If you travel between Cambridge and Cogloctoc and you go by Bathurst and Bay Chimo, and as you go inland towards Cogloctoc, you come across a place called Bernard Harbor. You come across a place called Tree River. And in along those places, my late parents were there. My grandparents, my late grandparents were there as part of the caretakers of the land. They did not go in and squander and mess up the land. They left it the way they found it. When the military moved in because of the Cold War and they upped and left, we see right across the land from Alaska to Greenland the mess that they left behind. The primary users of this land were not like that. You've heard many words. I'll try and be short. I got to be careful. You've heard many words from many presenters. Most of the words, to me, I hope were taken as encouragement, but also as a point of realizing that, okay, they want to use the land, and here's how we have set it up within the document we called the Land Claim Agreement, which is a living document. And in that living document, we have the Land Use Commission. And their documents within the Nunavut land claims is also a living part of the document. So as commissioners, it is your duty on our behalf. We can't all be there together to say, no, you can't, or you must do it like this. But you as our designate commissioners, you will bring to the table of those who are still coming and saying, you need to change this, you need to change this. It's not working for us to change it. It doesn't work like that because we are looking after our land. And as we are looking after our land, we are also saving it for our children who will go out and use it as well after us and our grandchildren. And I told you yesterday, I have many grandchildren and many great-grandchildren. The impact of what we've been hearing and of what we are going to attempt to do, they're the ones that are going to see the change. And we are trying very hard as parents and grandparents and great-grandparents that we want to preserve it for them, like my parents did for me. So, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, again, you've heard many words. I'm sure you're going to hear many, many more words down the line. But we trust you, and we know that you will do as the people, the primary users, have always been looking after the land. Sharon, it's good to see you back home. Daryl, good to see you back home again for a short time. Jonathan, you were just a little tight when you left. Welcome home. And it's good to see you all, and I wish you a safe journey back to your home community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Beverly Magsagak with Akalukdujak Hunters and Choppers. Thank you to the Nunavut Planning Commission for coming to Cambridge Bay and doing your hearing, bringing our region together. Thank you to the interpreters. I know sometimes it's very difficult to interpret from each language. Thank you to all the participants and the HTOs from across our region. Like my dad Harry mentioned, we are stewards of the land and the water. And I'm going to talk about Cambridge Bay because we're on Victoria Island. So with our animals, with the marine and terrestrial, they migrate by the season. So we need to really be careful in the springtime and in the fall time, and that is when Inuit harvest their catch so that they could have plenty for the winter storage. Our caribou right now, as mentioned by presenters, it is very critical. We are doing our best as an HTO to manage and try to bring up those caribou numbers. That is our main source of food. Our hunters, I like to call them the brave ones because they're the ones that take the journey in the fall time when the ice starts to form. They risk their own lives to go from the island to the mainland to go hunt and harvest for their families and our communities. I'd like to give them great recognition for their bravery. As we mentioned to the Prime Minister when he visited, that the ice is here 8 to 9 months of the year, and the ice is our highway. I'd like to keep that in mind, especially with newer and bigger icebreakers that are capable to go through the ice at some point in maybe not our lifetime, but in the next lifetime for our generation. We need to respect our ancestors, where they used to live and where their family members now today still go to visit. I will mention a few that are around. Would be Perry River, Ellis River, Wellington Bay, and Anderson Bay. As mentioned earlier, we need to respect our ancestors' wishes and continue to be stewards of the land and water. Thank you.
Jack Hunters and Choppers Chair Bobby Grinley. First, I'd just like to say thank you to NPC, all the commissioners, the staff, like Bev said, the interpreters, ladies and gentlemen over here doing all their running around and looking after everybody here. So, big thank you to everyone. What everybody has said already, there's not much to add though, but you know, sure there's disagreements and everybody's got their different point of views on how we see things. We're human, we see it one way, the person beside me sees it a different way. And that having a group like this come together, sure there's differences and eventually we may come together and meet in the middle, or somewhere we'll meet eventually and have it all figured out and settled. So, you know, having these talks and having the disagreements, nothing gets settled if you don't have disagreements. You know, and everybody got to say and do a presentation, and then everybody will see it one way, and then you start to realize what everybody's going through. So, and it was great to see and hear everybody's presentation from the communities, from everybody out there sitting there doing their presentations. We get to see where they're coming from as well. And it makes you think a different way. So, like everybody said, this is a big job. Hats off to everybody here. So hopefully we can get everything figured out and make sure we have everything in place, like for our kids and grandkids, like Harry said. So it's going to take a little bit longer, but hopefully we can get it done and everybody can, well, most of us may be happy, some may not be. So it's just hats off to everyone, though. I hope you enjoyed your stay in Cambridge. Looking forward to everybody coming back and going to your guys' communities as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Laurel Bennett. I am the Planning and Lands Administrator for the Hamlet of Cambridge Bay. Welcome to all of you to Cambridge Bay, and welcome back to previous Iglitutiamiak. It's great to have you here. I would also like to thank our fabulous folks who've been keeping everything running smoothly. Thank you to the interpreters, big thank you to the interpreters, to the camera staff, the microphone staff, all the tech staff, and thank you to the Nunavut Planning Commission for bringing us all here together. I'd like to thank Jonathan for the overview, beautifully informative, Kwana, and I would like to thank all of the panelists for bringing your opinions forward. And I would certainly like to thank the community delegates for your advocacy, your views, and your traditional knowledge that is greatly taken to heart. Thank you so much, Kwana.
Jim McEachern, CAO, Municipality of Cambridge Bay. I'll be brief because I think everything's pretty much been said. But just a couple of quick points. First, I think it's fair to say that the municipality of Cambridge Bay historically has been open and receptive to mining, but not mining at all costs. Sustainable, respectful development, we've been open to. I think it's imperative or important that the experts, that the HTOs across the territory are the guide in developing this plan. At the end of the day, our hope is that the plan will strike a balance between sustainable, respectful development and wildlife and land management. I think ultimately that should be everybody's goal. And I think the last point I'd like to make is I would like to work with our local HTO in a joint submission following our discussions here so that we're aligned moving forward, and I think we are on the majority of issues. And I would hope to see more communities take that kind of approach. And in that joint submission, I will ask for a little bit more clarification on the within municipal boundaries.
Thank you. I'll stick to the agenda. Federal government for closing statements. Representative from federal government, please.
Whenever you're ready. Go ahead.
Kwana, Mr. Chair. Spencer Dewar, Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada. Sorry, I'm not Terry Outlaw. I'll be speaking on behalf of the Government of Canada members in Cambridge Bay and those that are unable to attend in person. We certainly appreciate that the Commission has made the hearings available via live stream. We would like to thank the community of Cambridge Bay for their warm welcome and everyone who helped bring this hearing together. We'd also like to thank the commissioners the Nunavut Planning Commission team, and the interpreters for their excellent work. This week has brought us together and has offered some valuable insights into the expectations of communities and participants of a first-generation land use plan. This is an important step and highlighted the difficulties and complexities before the Commission in achieving balance required in a land use plan. Listening to the hunters and trappers organizations and the hamlets and the community members, it is clear that conservation is a priority. It often seemed presented as an either-or proposition. But land use planning is about finding balance, and it should not be a choice between economic development and jobs or environmental protection and food security. We believe finding the balance that provides for protection of the environment and economic development will require a closer look at some specific areas. This will take efforts from all parties to collaborate and compromise to find workable solutions. At times, the best option to address these issues will very well be the land use plan. But we cannot lose sight that is not the only option. Other regulatory tools under the Nunavut Agreement and territorial and federal legislation that can also be used to address important concerns. Working together through these options may provide broader agreement amongst parties to assist the Commission. The Government of Canada would also encourage the Commission to pay special attention to the submissions of the Kitikmeot Inuit Association and Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated as the designated Inuit organizations in accordance with the Nunavut Agreement, particularly in regards to the request for regional diversity and the treatment of Inuit-owned land, and give considerable weight to their recommendations on applying a distinct approach to Inuit-owned lands. This is the first of 5 public hearings, and the Government of Canada is optimistic. We appreciate the Commission's openness and flexibility as parties work together on the shared goal of a sound, well-supported, and clear land use plan that can be successfully implemented. We remain committed to this process, and we will work with participants to help inform the Commission, as we recognize it is the Commission that has the difficult task of developing a first-generation land use plan, one that can be jointly accepted by the Government of Canada, Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated, and the Government of Nunavut. Kwana, Taima, Mr. Chair.
Nunavut
Government of Nunavut.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Chair. Henry Coleman on behalf of the Government of Nunavut. On behalf of the Government of Nunavut, I would like to thank the Nunavut Planning Commission for the opportunity to be here and partake in the Kitikmeot public hearing for the draft Nunavut Land Use Plan. The Government of Nunavut remains committed to the processes outlined in the Nunavut Agreement for land use planning and continues to support the efforts of the Commission in this task. The successful completion of the Nunavut Land Use Plan is a Government of Nunavut priority, once approved, the Nunavut Land Use Plan should guide and direct the territory's long-term vision for development and conservation. This is a monumental task for the Commission, requiring a balanced approach that is reflective of a range of views. I would therefore like to thank all those who have traveled here to participate in this public hearing. We have listened to and recorded the different perspectives we've heard regarding the draft Nunavut Land Use Plan. Some of the key points that I'd like to highlight is that we have heard Talo'yoak's concerns regarding the Boothia Peninsula and look forward to continuing discussions about its future. We have heard the Joe-Haven delegation on the uncertainty around herd decline, and we will continue our research into the causes. We have heard Cambridge Bay's concerns on municipal planning and share them. We have heard your regional wildlife board's concerns regarding the Inuit Kayumayetokangit and scheduling of this year's wildlife survey compared to previous years. As Assistant Deputy Minister, I will take this back to my department's ongoing effort to improve. On other general concerns raised outside of the scope of the land use planning, we have heard these also. We will be directing them to the Government of Nunavut's relevant departments, and we thank you for raising them. In closing, we wish to thank the Commission for providing this opportunity to comment on the draft Nunavut Land Use Plan and urge them to consider the recommendations that we have made and those recommendations made by other participants. As stated in our presentation, the Government of Nunavut sees the need for considerable revisions to the draft Nunavut Land Use Plan in order to achieve an improved balance between environmental and economic development goals. We look forward to working with the Commission and our planning partners to develop a territory-wide land use plan which is appropriately scoped and in accordance with our mandate, Katujuluta. We look forward to a refined draft Nunavut land use plan after these public hearings and a successfully approved Nunavut land use plan in the near future. Thank you very much.
Namik, NTI Kulu, NTI.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, Cambridge Bay, working towards our future, see what could be agreed upon. We know what was there before us, and here we are working towards for even a better future. We appreciate the Commission. You allowed us to voice our opinions, and it really helps a lot. It creates harmony where each organization stands, your 2001 draft land use plan. We have a short statement at this final stage of the proceeding, what we know and heard in this week. NTI, we've heard, we looked, we listened, and what concerns are, you express everything, and we appreciate it. We work for the future, and it was in evidence that you are working hard for this. It will impact many people, many communities, especially the land through land use process. Hamlets, HTOs in this region, Wildlife Board, and KIAs. NTI heard. We've heard. We liked it. How we can preserve conservation and harvesting in this region. What's out there, it's part of Inuit life. Harvesting, conservation of mammals is very important, foremost in NTI's mind. We also heard the land use plan that we are here for. It touches various things, how the land should be protected and how it should be good for the future economically, and Inuit needs should balance as we progress. NTI says and stands that draft Nunavut land use plan, it hates improvement. It will be stable if it's done properly, conservation foremost in mind. So as it is, let's not forget that economic development, job creation is also important to Inuit.
That the Inuit right to wildlife and harvesting and Inuit-owned land both be equally recognized in the Nunavut land use plan. Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated welcomes the Government of Canada support in principle that the Nunavut land use plan may apply a distinct approach to Inuit-owned lands. Inuit have negotiated defined rights on behalf of Inuit within the Nunavut Agreement. These include becoming landowners to small portion of land in Nunavut settlement area. I like to stress also that anywhere in the world, Inuit had the biggest private land ownership after the Nunavut Land Claims Agreement. That is a very, very useful, and nobody else in the world have that size of private owned land. I think this is part of our achievement, and we also, when we sign the Nunavut Land Claims Agreement, that we know that we have to put the management into it. I think this is a good idea that the Nunavut Planning Commission doing right now to how the land should be governed and used in the Nunavut. It also includes a detailed process to protect land and wildlife when both Inuit and government wish to do so. This includes a right to negotiate Inuit benefits, Inuit Impact Benefits Agreement, including the swapping of land with the Crown when Inuit land is included in protected area. This is good, and we have done that already in parts of Nunavut settlement area and trading parcels of land with the Canadian government. Nunavut Tungavik wants to ensure that these rights are not diminished due to implementation of Nunavut land use plan. In finalizing the Nunavut land use plan, the Commission must respect the rules of Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated and the Regional Inuit Association as landowners, managers on behalf of Inuit for Inuit-owned lands. Flexible approaches in the Nunavut land use plan must be adopted to support Inuit decision-making on Inuit-owned land. That limits the impact of a Nunavut land use plan on rights of Inuit to manage Inuit-owned land. Nunavut tungavik isimatsiagalawakput taannailak nunau ata Inuit nunakudingit
that surface and subsurface rights on Inuit-owned land, how the minerals should be extracted, how to achieve working relationship for the economy. And these were primary concern during negotiation, what is under the land. People before us have thoughts working with governments at the time how best to govern the land. So it's the first foremost the Nunavut land use plan be accomplished. It says in Nunavut agreement the planning process should concentrate on what is really needed to the territory and to the communities and to its inhabitants. The planning you are undertaking now, it really needs support to accomplish it with few minor amendments. The communities in the regions continue your important work. As you have shown this past week, your visions towards Nunavut land use plan, it is very important. So we talk, we look for ways, we look for compromises so the land can be handled properly, what Commission is trying to achieve with this land use plan. So we spoke, NTI, Nunavut Tungavi Incorporated, we are listening. We will listen again. We will listen what concerns are, how you want to proceed in progress of this draft implementation. Our support staff have been very helpful to both of our parties. They're instrumental to what we are achieving and what we are discussing today. I appreciate that this commission hearing took place in Kitakmute. Thank you, Nunavut Planning Commission, your staff. The preparation you have put in great detail, and the interpreters, many of us would not be able to communicate, so the appreciation should be handed to them. Thank you for the time you have taken to come to this region. Cambridge Bay is a very nice community. They're always welcoming and facilities are here. And in closing, it says that there were two concerns, that we were born and the land was given to us. We've heard it today. Let's not forget that. Let's try to keep that in mind. We are here because of hard work of our forefathers. All your concerns will be included in Land Claim Nunavut Planning Commission documents. We say this is the first generation documents. It needs improvement, and it will be so. It's not the first public hearing. There's other regions that will proceed even to parts of Manitoba, 2 times in Baffin Island, and they will hear the same from NPC and receive answers what their needs are. So it's a hard work. It's not an easy task to finish and acquire what we need. We look forward to final conclusion of this process. If it's not right, it will be fixed. there are many ways and to present and many ways to fix the problem. It will work. You have a good flight home. I'm sure your families will be waiting for you and welcoming you. Thank you. Thank you.
Sharon
will have a short speech.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to, I better move forward, to all the participants that came, all of the community members. And I know everybody has thanked the translators, but truly, we would not be all communicating without their dedication and hard work. So I'd like to just give them a round of applause. I would also like to recognize Johnny, Chris, and Willie, and the Asuma team that you don't see here that has been supporting us on the other end for the live streaming. Thank you very much. Bessie, if your team can stand up. This team, and Joan isn't here, but they have been our arms and legs working with NOWD and our team on the ground since we arrived last Wednesday, and they've just been a godsend. So thank you very much. To our staff who are never tiring and are very committed to this process and very open to this process. I thank each and every one of you too for your dedication, and our consultants and our support staff. Thank you very much. To all the participants and all of the community members, I thank each and every one of you for having the confidence to come, to share, to be open, and give the Commission your submissions and guidance. Going forward, we do have, this was the first of the 5 public hearings, and we have 4 hearings remaining, and for many of the delegates, we look forward to seeing you along this journey. To the community of Cambridge Bay, Jim, all of the water truck drivers who had to work overtime this week, and all of the municipal staff supporting us, hats off to you. Big round of applause to them, because we all wouldn't be clean. The Commission does foster the principles of working together and respects both the scientific and traditional knowledge, and we continue both with our verbal and written presentations to ensure they're incorporated into our record. To all participants, the guidance that you can give us with specific recommendations of solutions and options to the draft plan will help the commissioners with their final decisions on the final content of the draft plan. I also would like to remind everyone the closing of the record is January 10th, and the sooner your submissions are in, the better it is for the Commission. So thank you to each and every one of you, and may you have safe travels home. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, speakers. Bobby mentioned that we're not done yet. I personally like to thank the community of Cambridge Bay. You have been a great host. Thank you, Cambridge Bay, and the delegates from the communities. You're all here and you participated, and the registered participants who gave presentation, who said, and the panel, thank you. And to the staff of NPC, you have done great work. You have given us something to work with. You have prepared your documents well. But regardless, everybody, thank you. The interpreters, although Lucy, I apologize to you. Your dialect was a little different to me, so I'll remember that. We work together. We're not done. There is a lot of work ahead of us. My fellow commissioners, they have a hard task of analyzing everything to work this document into a solution. Hopefully, we still have to travel to other regions to conduct the same exercise. This is the first stop for 5 hearings that we will be conducting. Thank you for your coming into this proceeding. On behalf of the commissioners, thank you. They're always supportive, although they didn't say anything at this time, but they know they will guide me in order to analyze what we have to put together at the end, and hopefully it will be acceptable. I have no more to say. I just want to say thank you in closing. Joshua, please say the closing prayer so we can conclude. One speaker.
Mr. Chair, Luigi Toretti, Kitelmeoti Inuit Association. I am not a lawyer and I do not understand law. I try to advise the Kitelmeoti Inuit Association based on my knowledge and experience with the organization, my knowledge of the Nunavut Agreement. The Kitelmeoti Inuit Association prepared a short closing statement, but we are not being given an opportunity to speak to it. And if I understand correctly, and the lawyers may correct me if I'm wrong, but the organization has standing at this hearing. And it is really a surprise to me to see that. We are not being given the opportunity. Taima.
I'm sorry to hear that. I just like to say we don't always get what we want. You were given opportunity to speak. And we are concluding. We are concluding because our agenda dictates that, Joshua.
inyo ilo nunangan malo atok tabulu taman na nuksuti ilo tamang may tamakuna kamatyaw na kuluta atana mana isimatning okos kay natuta koto atana pivalo utaw yung nakulugit malo ang kanati luta takola ang kanati lugit Boglo ile bokli maksima yebut atana piyu nakita kulugit syuti babut amataw taman na nunatin piyu lecha kulugo tena kawnya magalo atugod piyu mayat ni langin ni piyu na jang itu ulone upolone ikayok taw judi set ni kisena atana tatiki battegi tili silawa bikamanya kulit dite tamane nunatin ni nakjutene amataw inaw katitini dan tunga na mong lutaman na piyum na kung lutigo isu magsasong na tiluta at na yulok tigo magtayli tigo amalo lang na utan na mo ingat syuta katyaw na kung luta ang ikan na tulo ang katyaw na kung lugit isu magsasong tiyaw lutigo tuksak tigo at takwa aulat siyit isi watak lo magkwalog katimiyit at ko yali jutigi babud atana sumagsasatyaw na kulugit sa atigul sibun siyabulo atik sa kuji sibu kaito siya atingane amen
Enemy